Thanks for taking a moment to watch this video about our upcoming VBS. VBS is one of the most fun and challenging things we do as a church family every summer. And it's a wonderful opportunity to have an influence in a positive way for Christ on the lives and the hearts of a lot of students. But it's something that we could not do without a great group of committed volunteers like you. And let me just stop and say thank you. I know that VBS is a lot of effort, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of long days, but all the energy, dedication, and sacrifice that you give to VBS truly makes a difference in students' lives. You know, kids were important to Jesus, and Jesus said that when we do something for the least of these, our brothers and sisters, it's like we're doing it to Him. And I think in a lot of ways what we do for VBS is simply serving the wishes and needs of Jesus Christ. And so again, I want to tell you thank you. There's a couple ways for you to get connected to know everything that's happening as we approach the VBS week. If you're a Facebook person, you can use our Facebook page, and you can just ask to be invited to that page, and we'll invite you and get you set up. And you'll find out about all the things that are happening and be able to chat with different people that are working with you. If you're not a Facebooker, that's great as well. We also have a text group that we send out texts periodically just to kind of let you know the highlights and the things that you'll need to know. If you can get connected in one of those two ways, it really helps us to be able to efficiently communicate with all of the 100 or so volunteers that work together to make VBS the special event that it is every year. Our mission at VBS is to know and love God and to teach students to do the same. And there's a few things that we can do beforehand to be prepared to give the best possible explanation to the students as they arrive. Number one is to know and familiarize yourself with the Bible story. Now, a lot of these stories are stories you may have heard before, but it always helps to go back and kind of reread the text so you know where we're going to be that evening in our classes and activities. Secondly, be prepared by knowing the memory word that's assigned that evening. Each night there will be a verse or a portion of a verse depending on the age of students that you're working with. And it helps to have it fresh in your mind so that you can help to plant it in theirs. We also ask that if all possible, you could come an hour or at least a half an hour before VBS begins. As you probably know, students begin to arrive at least 30 minutes and oftentimes 45 minutes beforehand. And our meal crew next door does a wonderful job of preparing a meal to keep them busy for a while, but we need to have all of the staff people in place so that when the students arrive, the VBS experience is on and ready for them to enjoy. Also, know the layout of the building. We'll have maps around to kind of let you know where things are, but maybe your first night here, take a moment to just walk through the campus and familiarize yourself where different activities are going to be held. It'll help you a lot if someone comes up and says, "Hey, where's such and such?" Also take a moment to familiarize yourself where things are located for VBS. As you know, the building gets transformed into a very different place, and it helps to just have a general idea of where the kids are flowing to or flowing from, even if you're not a group leader. If you're a group leader, they'll be provided a map that gives you an idea of where to go from place to place. And if you also need one of these as just a volunteer, they'll be available for you as well. In addition to a deeper understanding of the Bible and the Bible characters, we want to use the opportunity of VBS to set for the students an example of what a Christian really looks like. We ask that everybody who volunteers or helps with VBS is careful to practice the fruits of the Spirit: love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. Believe it or not, the students are watching us more than they're listening to us. And sometimes the greatest example that we set at VBS is in our behavior, sometimes in our most difficult moments. In addition to being attentive to the students and being patient with their needs and their misbehavior, we also ask that if you would, to just set aside your cell phone for the period of time that we're at VBS. I think in our modern world, there's no more powerful statement to students that they matter than that we set aside the distractions and just focus on them. And for a lot of kids, that's something that never happens at a very regular interval in their life. In addition to giving them a solid and understandable explanation and also to setting a good example, we want to create a fun and safe environment for VBS. Now, a lot of people work very, very hard to create an environment that invites their imagination and is fun. There's a lot of great worship, and we appreciate everybody who works hard to create that environment for VBS, because there's a lot of work that goes into that, as many of you well know. We also want to make sure that each and every student that comes is safe from the moment they arrive until the moment that they leave. And so in order to do that, we've set up a few safety precautions that we just want to review with you so that you're familiar with them and understand the reasons why. Our safety precautions are pretty straightforward and intended to keep our kids safe. Number one, we have safe zones set up through the building, and I know this is a little difficult because we're used to flowing in and out of the building, but it's almost a necessity in order for us to make sure that the wrong people don't mix with the kids. These zones are clearly marked, and we do our best to facilitate people's needs in and around those areas, but please understand if there's some passages that are blocked or some doors that are not accessible. Secondly, each parent will need a tag to pick up their kid. Our check-in system is not perfect, but it's the best thing that we've come up with so far. Each kid upon arrival gets a lanyard, and the parent receives a pickup card. They're able to give that to whomever they want to, but that person must have that card in order to pick up that student. Believe it or not, nearly 2/3 of our kids that come to VBS don't often attend here at Forest Park, and so we don't always know who their parents are. This just helps us to make sure that the right kid gets with the right parent, and that if somebody else is sent to pick up the kid, they have the permission of the parent to pick up that student. In addition to our safety zones and parent pickup system, we ask that everybody who works with students here at VBS has a background check. Now, if you've had one in the past 5 years, you're good. But if you haven't, let me just take a moment to explain to you why we require that. The federal government requires of us to have on file here at the office a registered background check for everyone who works with students. Now, your information is kept safe and confidential and is shredded immediately after we've processed the background request. Once you receive the background request, we give everybody who helps with VBS a t-shirt. It's the easiest way we've found to identify those people who are associated with VBS, and thus to create a safe zone for the kids where we know everybody around us has had a background check and has permission to be a part of the VBS program. The last two safety considerations are pretty simple. Don't be alone with a child. If there's an occasion for you to need to take a student to the restroom or to walk them someplace or other, just make sure that some other VBS volunteer is able to go with you, or send for one of us floating around and we'll give you help. Also, keep us informed. If you have a student that's sick or possibly a student that's giving you behavioral issues, there's several of us who are just roaming around looking for those opportunities to help you guys out. We want VBS to be as fun and stress-free as possible, and so if something's getting difficult, make sure just to reach out to one of us and we'll take that burden off of your shoulders. And finally, we would like just to ask you to join us in prayer for VBS. That God would work in the hearts and the lives of the students from this point until then. That the ground of their heart would be prepared and ready to hear the message of the gospel. That also God would be preparing us to have open hearts and the love and the care and concern for those students, that we might accurately reflect the love of God and the care of Christ for each and every kid. Again, we thank you so much for being a part of VBS, and thank you for taking a moment to watch this video. It just helps us to cover some of the bases that every VBS volunteer needs to know. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to come and talk with Mandy or myself or Brad or McKay. We'll do our best to find an answer if we don't have one for you. May God bless, and thanks again.